And this is one of the several perks of the pandemic, I guess, that we can still enjoy is the ability to keep in touch virtually from anywhere and have productive discussions such as the one we are going to have this morning, of course, plus minus time differences. Yes, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. I hope everyone is staying safe and sound. But as the saying goes, the show must go on, a business must go on. And through this session, we are hoping to discuss the major changes happening in Indonesia and Latin America and the Caribbean countries, or LAC, in terms of business environments and also investment climates, taking into account the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and also the continuous reforms being done in Indonesia and LAC despite of it. In the end, we hope that through this discussion we can identify strategies to complement each other's potentials to promote more growth through investment. So we have joining us for this session distinguished panelists, representatives from Indonesia and LAC. But to start us off, we are going to watch the following gorgeous video of Panama in honor of one of our panelists joining in this session. Let's take a look. And before we start our discussion, I have the honor to invite two distinguished Prelude panelists to give his opening remark. First, we'll be listening to an opening remark by the chairman of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or locally known as Kadin, Mr. Arsyad Rashid. He is also president and director of PT Indika Energi Terbuka, Indonesia's leading integrated energy company, and he was also World Economic Forum's Young Global Leader in 2011. Let's take a listen.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly honored to speak at today's event, the 2021 Indonesia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, or INA-LAC Business Forums, as we continue our effort to revitalize our economy in the midst of global pandemic. It has been almost 2 years since WHO declared the COVID-19 as a pandemic. It has wreaked a fog across the global economy and has an adverse effect on world trade and the flow of global foreign direct investment. As with all countries now, getting out of the pandemic mode is a priority. We have seen the economic recovery remains fragile, particularly with surges in COVID-19 cases with the rise of the new variants. The key to recovery lies in our ability to to keep the infection in control. And any forward-looking agenda is highly dependent on how we can get the economy back on track. As such, vaccination and implementing health protocol is important, as well as access to financial support and continuous fiscal and monetary stimulus. Speaking in the context of Indonesia, it is still fresh in our mind that not long ago, Indonesia was considered to be one of the epicentrum of the pandemic. After strict and proactive measures taken by the government, together with increase in vaccination rate and battling vaccine hesitancy, as well as bolstering its testing and tracing capacities, we are now seeing the tide has turned and we are gradually in control of the pandemic. We need to remain vigilant, but it is also important for us to look beyond the pandemic and start our path to return to normalcy. So, when we talk about the business and investment post-COVID-19, allow me to share several points. First, digitalization as key enabler to move forward, as digital technology play a critical role in sustaining business continuity during the pandemic. As a result of COVID-19, many businesses across sectors have accelerated their digital transformation, particularly towards digital economy and e-commerce. This is likely a sign of things to come, as the post-COVID-19 environment will continue to promote and enhance digital transformation. In doing so, we need to mobilize resources and invest towards the development of the infrastructures and the people, particularly to address the issue related to digital gap in digital literacy. Second, embracing inclusive and sustainable growth. We all know the saying, we are not safe until everyone is. Because if there is one thing that we can learn from this pandemic, is that we are all in this together. And I believe that is the same in how we do our business in the post-COVID-19 environment. We cannot rely on the economic giants, the big businesses, or the constant pursuit of economic growth. Small businesses are the engine of post-COVID-19 inclusive and sustainable growth. And we have to continue our support and provide an enabling environment for the small businesses to thrive. We need to enhance access to markets, finance, and skills, and at the same time, bringing modern technologies to small businesses. Adopting to modern technology could increase efficiencies and expanding their market. As backbone of many developing economies, including Indonesia, it is essential for us to empower small businesses and better prepare them for future challenges and emerging megatrends. The third, better synergy between private-public sectors. Both private and public sectors will face a different world that has been significantly altered by the COVID-19 pandemic. In order for both sectors to thrive, better collaboration is needed. We need to avoid working in silos and start working in synergy. Public and private sectors need to work together in more coordinated manner. Businesses' role is to provide jobs, competitive advantage, and economic growth. And at the same time, the government can provide incentive, support, and create society that are stronger, more resilient, and more equitable. By working together, we can create economies that simultaneously drive growth and lead to more inclusive societies that benefit all. And speaking about synergy between private and public sectors, allow me to share our experience during the peak of the pandemic and the crucial role of private-public synergy. To support recovery efforts, CADIN helps to facilitate private sectors and business companies to finance vaccines procurement by themselves and distribute those doses among their workers for free. This initiative helps to alleviate some of the financial burden from the state and could otherwise redirect it to other social assistance programs. In addition, CADIN also helps setting up vaccination centers and mobile vaccines to increase vaccine outreach into more areas and to speed up vaccination rate. In the wake of oxygen shortage, CADIN also provides support in coordinating oxygen assistance in the form of providing oxygen cylinders, ISO tanks, and facilitating rotation or swap mechanism to replace the empty cylinders, as well as establishing rumah oxygen or the oxygen house, the facility that is designed to provide direct access to oxygen supply and medication for patients with moderate symptoms of COVID-19. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I welcome today's event as it will provide new opportunities and new frontier for businesses to strive in today's challenging environment through close intercontinental collaboration. But more importantly, today's event will give us an opportunity to share experience and best practices on how business in Indonesia and in Latin America and Caribbean are coping with the pandemic. And the lesson that we can learn today will help us forge our way to the future beyond. I thank you. Stay healthy and stay safe. Again, thank you very much. My best regards.
Thank you, Mr. Ashad Rashid. Next, we are going to listen to an opening remark by the President of Chamber of Commerce of Cuba, Mr. Antonio Caricarte. He was appointed as the first Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment, as well as he has been the Chairman of the Governing Board of the Biopharmaceutical Business Group since 2015. Let's take a listen.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the invitation to participate in this important event, Indonesia Latin America Forum, to talk about Cuban economy and the opportunity for Indonesian company, Indonesian business community. Well, I would like to say that Cuba is an island that has not large natural resources. Our main resource is the human one. We are 11 million persons with a life expectancy of 79 years and the infant mortality of 4 per 1,000 births. And those are figures very close to those in the developed world. Thanks to the strong social government policy, which focus mainly in the health, free health, education, and culture. The year 2020, like everyone, was a very complex year for Cuba, not only because of the COVID, which have a tough impact, but also because of the strengthening of the blockade in the last year. We have a huge impact. It has the highest negative impact in a year of more than $5.5 billion US. And this combined factor resulted in the decrease in the Cuban economy around 11% in 2020. For tackling with that, the government has made economic and social strategy to, first of all, resist the huge impact of these combined factors and to create the basis for future development. And the government keeps its national plan of development up to the year 2030, which define the main areas to concentrate endeavors and resources to speed up the development. Along with this national development plan, the government has taken a number of measures, including the recently was established a law decree for promoting micro, small, and medium enterprises, either private or state, in order to incentivize creativeness, entrepreneurship, to facilitate and to enhance the business climate and the development basis on innovation and technology. Among the main sectors that we would like to draw the attention to Indonesian company are the food production, first of all. I think there is an opportunity for Indonesian company. Cuba is a net importer of food. Normally in a year we import around 1 million tons of food, mainly rice, wheat, maize, meat pulp, chicken meat, chicken pork, and according to analysis, half of this demand we can produce domestically on a competitive basis. So we are calling for foreign investors to consider the establishing of plant for processing food, vegetable, meat, milk, producing cheese, and I think could be an interest sector for Indonesian company. Other important sector is tourism. In the year 2019, we received 4.3 million tourists. Of course, due to the pandemic, we stopped this activity, but from November 15, we are going to open again, and gradually we are going to increase the number of tourists. The goal here is to diversify destination tourists, not only sun and beach tourists, but also the tourists for historical reason, cultural reason, and natural reason. And I would like to emphasize medical tourism because in Cuba we have the combination of the experience of doctor. Many doctors of Cuba work abroad and have a skill, and also the result of the pharmaceutical and the biotechnology industry. Let's say in Cuba, half of the demand of the medicine is domestically made, and they are unique, high technology product, either for diagnosis or treatment that could work in different diseases like cancer, diabetes in an integrated way, and other, let's say, rehabilitation programs, neurological, orthopedic, and I think it's one of the fields that we are not using with this huge potential that it is in this sector. So we call Indonesian company mainly operator, tourist operator, which are specialized in health, that we can work together in this. And also not only for medical, but also for life quality, rehabilitation. Cuba has a very good condition, natural human condition for enhance this kind of stories. Tourism has been the engine of the economy, and it will keep the roles in the coming future. Other important sector is the renewable energy. Cuba is producing electricity with very low degree of renewable in it, and around 4%, and the goal is to increase up to 25% by the year 2030. To do that, we have to install 2,400 megawatt a year, and the government is seeking to establish 19 biopower using the sugarcane bagasso, and around 14 wind farm, and of course solar photovoltaic in Cuba, and the radiation potential is high, 5 kilowatt hour per square meter. So we think that people wishing to invest in here have a total guarantee, first of all, by the sign of contract with the national generation electricity generation company, which assure the purchase of this generated electricity. Other sector we somehow mentioned is pharmaceutical and industry, biotechnological industry. We would like to access market with new product or developing new projects, or in the different business modality, such as license contract, or jointly develop projects, or joint venture to enlarge existing facility, or establish new facility in Cuba and abroad. I think that this also could be of interest of Indonesian company. Especially, I would like to highlight the projects for brain disorder, for cancer, or diabetes, or any other pathology. But this is, in my opinion, one of the sectors that could be of interest of company of both countries. Construction industry is a sector developed in Indonesia, and we need to develop this sector because it's basic for the development of the rest of the sectors in Cuba. Especially, we would like to get modern technology, special technology which save employment and to increase productivity. Also, we need to increase the production of building material and to promote the building of infrastructure. We are calling for foreign investment, for instance, for the modernization of airport, port, and other infrastructure. Oil sector, which is also famous in Indonesia, is a sector that the government is trying to develop. We produce half of our demand, around 4 million tons of oil and gas related. And there is a zone, an economic special zone in the Mexican Gulf, which according to geological analysis have around 10 billion barrels of existence, and we have available 83 blockade to offer to likely foreign investors, as well as the north part of the country, of course offshore, where we have available 10 block with approximately the same estimated assistance like in the Mexican Gulf. All these opportunities are included in the portfolio of opportunity that we yearly edited, which contain by sector, by territory, the projects calling for foreign investors. It is not impossible to find common interest, to find sectors, common interest, in order to enhance our trade and business relations. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Antonio Caricarte. Very well, it's time for me to introduce our distinguished panelists for this session. We have representatives from Indonesia and Latin America and the Caribbean countries. From Indonesia, we have Mr. Reza Faldo Maspaitela of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or Kadin, as well as founder and president director of Faldo Investama. Just a very quick background on Pak Reza. He has experience in banking, insurance, and finance for more than 20 years, working for multinational companies, including General Electric, Capital, and Citibank, among others. Recipient of many awards, well-versed in English and Dutch, graduated from Webster University with an MBA degree and a BA degree in Management Economics, as well as a BA degree from Universitas Trisakti. A very good morning to Pak Reza.
Good morning, Kania. To be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And next, we have a representative from LAC. First, we have Guzman, President of Chilean Venture Capital Association. Who will be joining us very soon, but before that, I would like to introduce another representative as panelist in this session as well, is Ambassador Carmen Gisela Vergara, Executive Director of Pro Panama, which is the Agency for Investment Attraction and Export Promotion of the Panamanian government. Hello, very good morning to you, Ambassador.
Hello. It is actually night here, but
night, right.
Very good time of the day to everybody that is joining us.
Right, right. Again, time differences. So good morning from Indonesia and good night. Just a little background on Ambassador Vergara. She's an expert in international trade, business development, trade negotiations, among others. Has also served as Minister of Trade and Industries, as well as Deputy Minister of Foreign Trade. Graduated in Law and Political Science from the University of Panama. Holds a master's degree in Banking and Financial Law from the University of El Externado in Colombia, and a postgraduate degree in International Trade Negotiations from the University of Santiago, Chile, and was considered by Forbes magazine as one of the 50 most powerful women in Central America. Again, a welcome, Ambassador. And next, as was introduced before, we have Mr. Francisco Guzman, President of Chilean Venture Capital Association, joining us as well. All right. So before introducing Mr. Guzman, we're trying to reach him. He'll be joining with us soon as well. I'll be introducing the next panelist, Mr. Rizky Kramadibrata, President of Grab Indonesia. Hello, good morning, Pak Rizky.
Hi, good morning, Kania, and good evening as well to excellencies and ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Again, I'd like to highlight that we're morning in Indonesia. Just a little background on Pak Rizky. Has more than 20 years of working for multinational companies. Prior to joining Grab Indonesia, he was a regional director for Air Asia Group, and prior to that, CEO for Air Asia Indonesia. He has spent the majority of his career in the telco industry, in which he spent about 5 years in the US. And he graduated from State University of New York with an MBA degree, and graduated from Universitas Padjadjaran with a bachelor degree in management. Again, a welcome. Thank you again for joining us. And next, last but not least, I hope Mr. Francisco Guzman is with us. No, he'll be joining us later. Then we have a panelist also joining Mr. Francisco Guzman, President of Chilean Venture Capital Association. And that's it. We have all the panelists right now. Again, welcome. Good morning from Indonesia and good evening. Thank you again for joining us in this session, and also some housekeeping to get it out of the way. For the participants, please submit your questions through our chat system available at the bottom of your screen. We will try to pick a couple of questions at the end of our discussion as we go into our Q&A. Very well. I'd like to start with an overview from each of the panelists in their respective field, of course, to how and what extent have Indonesia and LSE countries' investment climates been heavily affected by the increased uncertainty and also difficulty in the current global economic situations, both as destinations as well as sources of foreign investments. As we know that in 2020, for example, FDI flows plunged 35% globally, according to the World Investment Report by UNCTAD, because of lockdowns and prospects of recession. This year, it's said to be bottoming out. There is a prospect of an increase in FDI flows, about 10 to 15%. So I'd like your perspective on this. I'd like to start with Ambassador Vergara. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, here in Latin America, as in other parts of the world, this is very true. I mean, we have suffered the effects of the pandemic. Thankfully, in Panama, we are now coming out of it, as over 68% of our population has the two vaccination doses already, and we actually implemented since October 1st a new program to vaccinate tourists for free that would come to Panama, and so they can get their vaccines here. And that has opened up possibilities for the private sector, who's now open and functioning properly. There are no restrictions now for the different economic activities to be had in Panama, and no time restraints or quarantines in effect here in our country either. So we are slowly recovering the status that we had as a hub, the hub of the Americas that operates here from our airport, where about 20 million tourists went through Panama to connect from here to North America, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, Europe, or Asia with direct flights. So that is going to open up possibilities also, because as much as technology has served its purpose in getting us closer as the world was in lockdown, and I think this is a tendency that is going to continue, there's going to be a mix, because people, they need to see people. And businessmen, they want to see you and shake your hand, look you in the eye in order to do business. So I think some things are going to start slowly coming back.
Yeah.
But some other things having to do with technology are going to play a big role. And Panama, thankfully, has been considered by mostly all of the international agencies that had forecast the recovery process, like the IMF and the World Bank and INA-LAC and the Central American Bank, the IADB. They all consider Panama amongst the countries that are going to recover better, faster from the effects, the economic effects of the pandemic. In fact, the forecast for this year is 12% growth of the GDP. We already grew over 10% in the first semester of this year, so we think that that would be fairly accurate. And for next year, it's over 8%. In both cases, way over the estimate for Latin America and the Caribbean or Central America combined. And that is due to the fact that Panama has been doing its homework for a long time now in promoting an economic model based on a strategic location, but also the fact that we have a very good quality of life and business climate here, and most essentially social peace, which for companies to forecast investments into the future is essential. So I think that we can do a parallel, and I'm sure my colleagues in the panel will have same things to say about their regions in terms of the recovery process. It is imperative to have people vaccinated, because that is the only thing that is going to give investors and the community in general the peace of mind that whomever they're meeting or wherever they're traveling, they're not going to get sick. So this is a main thing for us here in Panama.
Right. So let's take a listen to what the Indonesian counterpart has to say. Pak Reza, Pak Rizky, take us through the recovery process that we are experiencing right now in Indonesia. What has it been like? What kind of reforms, what kind of strategies were implemented? Take us through it, Pak Reza.
Yes, thank you very much, Kanya. I think just like what's happening in the global arena, in the second quarter of 2022, in the beginning of the pandemic, Indonesia also have experienced the slow growth all the way down to about -5%, and then gradually improved toward the process. By Q4 2020, it reached about -2%. It is incredible that by Q2 2021, we were able to bounce back with a growth rate about 7.07%. Of course, there's a lot of course, strategy initiative that's being conducted by the government and also together with the Kadin and the private sectors in terms of stimulating the economy. But I think it's not just about the initiative that the government took, especially like the omnibus law in terms of the job creation, streamlining the ease of doing business, and also several adjustments on the regulation. But I think it's also because in the last 5 years prior to the pandemic, Indonesia has been active in terms of the institutional reform, in terms of the regulatory reform, but also on the fiscal reform. So as an impact, it allows us also to rebound faster in terms of our trade. Our trade at the moment is at the highest level compared to the before the pandemic, and also including our investment realization in 2020, even though it's during the COVID period, it is better than the previous to the pandemic, about 2.01%. Of course, this is also because of the bottlenecking activities that's being conducted by the BKPM and also our Ministry of Economy in terms of making the previous investment commitment that is being done in the countries already. So probably that is something probably I can share in the bulk part.
Okay, so countries are doing their homework, during this pandemic, are still doing their homework. So in terms of adjustment in the private sector, I'd like to ask this to Pak Rizky as well, as was mentioned by Ambassador Vergara earlier that I think it was Ambassador Vergara that said that technology is also key and also key enabler. I think Pak Rashid said that as well. You're in the digital space right now. Tell us what's been happening. What kind of adjustments did you have to make throughout this pandemic?
Yeah, thank you, Kania. And again, Pak Reza, Ambassador Vergara. Allow me to elaborate a little bit. I think right now, Indonesia definitely is a very important economy. We have a GDP of over $1 trillion US, and of course, we expect to continue to grow. Pandemic has changed definitely the way that the economic priority works as well. We see right now the social restrictions have been eased, and of course that's a good news. It's been quite devastated probably like a few months ago when we see like the pandemic was spreading quite heavily in Indonesia and impacting many elements of the economy as well. With that in mind right now, I think the first priority for us right now to recover post-pandemic is to make health as the first priority. And this is quite interesting because now health aspects is actually the prerequisites for economic activity. We all now know that the pandemic has made all us realize that how crucial public health is to the economy. Even Grab, like Kadin has said, Pak Reza said it, Pak Arshad as well said it, we're all committed to support government's effort in vaccinations. It's a good news that Indonesia, as much as challenging as it seemed before, we now have over 100 million people have been vaccinated. That's quite a challenging work in the beginning, but Grab has been one of the first to support that challenge, not the opportunities. We launched a program which we call Grab Vaccine Centers, collaborations with, of course, Ministry of Health, many local governments across Indonesia. With GVC programs, we're actually the first private partners to the governments and organizing the vaccination program since it's launched in February. Right now, we have launched this initiatives in over 54 cities, Kania, across Indonesia. And we launched some innovations as well in between, like remote registrations and then drive-through centers as well. And even the president stopped by one of our vaccine centers in Yogyakarta. And soon our apps will also integrate, our Grab apps, in which has become a super apps, will integrate to government's COVID-19 tracing applications, Peduli Lindungi, and soon all of our users will be able to tap into Peduli Lindungi through our apps. So that's the first one. So health is now very important. But you also see that digital transformations is very crucial. We see here that one of the most impacted sectors in Indonesia because of this pandemic is actually MSMEs, the micro, small, and medium enterprises. So technology is crucial for them, not only to rebound, but also to grow. So we need to empower them with technology. We need to empower them with the practical technology that they can use to expand their business. We encourage all stakeholders to collaborate in building Indonesia's digital ecosystem. And we definitely see the support from Indonesia's government through many of their initiatives. One of the example is Bangga Buatan Indonesia, the national movement. We launched also our GrabTech centers just last year, specializing in developing technology for MSMEs. GrabTech centers in Jakarta is the centers where our tech talents building all the technologies needed for MSMEs. Granted, it's food delivery, for examples, or delivery services, even to the groceries and mart deliveries as well. We're working with Indonesian governments to make sure that many of these MSMEs onboarding to digital platforms, but not only on onboarding. So this is very, very crucial as well. Taking them to digital platform is one thing, but making them to survive and grow their business using the technology, it's also an important homework. So through technologies, we equip them with tools not only to promote and expand their markets, but to be able also to learn their business better. So we equip them with business reports, for example, things that they haven't tapped in before, maybe in their conventional business, but now they tap into that kind of tools. And lately also, we know that among of those two, we also need government support, and we see governments really supporting this. On the policy frameworks, we believe that Indonesian governments acknowledges the significance of streamlining the policies and processes. So President Joko Widodo and his cabinet, we're really seeing doing multiple reforms to improve Indonesia's attractiveness toward foreign direct investment. So I think these are all the components that have been developed and in reactions to COVID. And I think we all have to deal with it.
Deal with it, hopefully through synergy, through collaboration, of course. Going back to Ambassador Vergara, take us through what is going to happen in terms of global trade and investment. You know, they're saying that post-COVID-19 trade patterns and investment sectors, the business sectors are just going to change. Pak Rizky earlier mentioned about the role of MSMEs and also how health is going to be an important factor going forward. So take us through what's going to happen, do you think, going forward in terms of global trade and investments?
Well, there has been so many studies on this subject lately. For us here in Panama, we are looking at all of the new ways in which we work, in which we manufacture, in which we get the goods and services delivered to us. Now more than ever, I think everything is truly a click away. And so handling information and having the availability of networking, that is very crucial for companies, especially small and medium companies, as other panelists have mentioned, because they have been the ones that have been more affected by the pandemic across all sectors. And there is different treatments for different areas because, for instance, the hospitality sector that has been very badly hit by the pandemic is one that traditionally employs a lot of women, for instance. And as women are 50% of the world's population, and in Panama also 50% of our population, then you have unemployment that it's signaling other social developments in the country that we have to look at. And of course, technology, it's our ally. I mean, had this happened 10, 15 years ago, I don't know how the world could have reacted, because we here in ProPanama, for instance, we had to change our entire work plan because all of a sudden we couldn't do any of the things that are the tools that any development agency uses, like go to fairs to promote our export offer or have commercial missions to find potential investors. We couldn't do that. So we had to rely heavily on technology. And here we developed a platform for virtual fairs. So we've done over a dozen virtual fairs between 2020 and 2021. We also have a platform for virtual roundtables with the Secretary for Economic Development for Central America. We have podcasts and site selection tours that are virtual so that people can visit Panama without having to be here personally. And so we have created our own network of tools. Actually, you can go into our webpage and you can look at the Panama Explorer and you can see the entire country mapped out, all of the companies, all of the investment opportunities, real estate, social indicators, any and all information that you would want to know about Panama. And I think other countries in the region, other development agencies like our own, have also implemented technology as a tool to get the demand and the supply to meet. Then you have all of the new tendencies, of course, which we are also subscribing because Panama is aiming to become the hub for sustainable investments for Latin America and the Caribbean. And of course, sustainable investments have a social impact. So we are looking for B-type companies to come and develop across the board in logistics, in digital, in food development, and infrastructure is very, very important. The new concepts like nearshoring, companies are now coming back to produce closer to their markets because the global supply chains are becoming more regional, and the cost of transportation through sea for merchandise is very high. So companies are looking for places to manufacture closer to their markets, and that's a tendency that we in Panama are looking at very closely because of the logistics infrastructure that we have to offer. Then you have the digital nomads, another tendency from the pandemic that we are heavily promoting here in Panama because of the connectivity that we have throughout the country. So you can come here with a computer and work from a hammock in a beach or from a cabin in a mountain, and you'll have the same connectivity as you have in cities like New York or London. So for this new tendency of people that can work that way and move around a lot and experience different cultures while they work, Panama is also a place, a very interesting place to develop that. Then you have new tendencies in manufacturing with all of the disruptive technologies that have to do directly with competitiveness because the countries and the companies that apply these technologies are going to be more competitive than the ones that don't. So for our private sector and our SMEs particularly, it is very important for us to implement these technologies in the private sector.
Reza, to complement those comments as well, in terms of sectors that are vital for investors, is it the same for every country in the world? Like, what about Indonesia? Which sectors do you think is going to remain vital, especially for investors? What are the area for potentially to develop further, especially in Indonesia?
Yes, thank you very much, Gani. In terms of the Indonesia sector's priorities, is of course focused on the export-oriented industries. For example, the pharmaceutical and also the medical services as one, and this also relating to the what's happening for the last 2 years of the pandemic. Automotive is still also our focus, and we've been also exporting a lot of cars like the Ford Fortuner, for example, to the Latin American countries. Electronics. Renewable energy, that's also an area of our investment focus. Mining, including the downstreaming of the of the products. For example, what's happening on the nickel and the Celebes Island, with the integration all the way down to downstreaming to the production of the battery, for example. And also, of course, with the needs of the Indonesia infrastructure development, the continuous development, this is also another area outside, of course, our manufacturing itself. Another aspect regarding of the digital economy, as you know, Indonesia Digital Transformation Initiative has been one of the big things that's been happening for this last few years. For example, as you know, in the region, probably there's about 12 unicorn, and probably 6 of them is from Indonesia, with 1 decacorn, like Gojek, for example. And this investment opportunities coming in from the outside, including also from Indonesia, is expanding, growing tremendously also. Now, talking about the post-pandemic, now there's a talk about there's probably will be some shift from the globalization into a regionalization. And I think this impact because of various factors, starting from probably the US-China trade war in the few years back, and also the pandemic situation. And this will then create more of a regional approaches. That's why I think there's an opportunity in terms of how do we create the regional cooperation between Indonesia being the biggest economy in ASEAN, and then also with the Latin America and Caribbean countries, where we can create the hub and spoke approach between designing a direct economic linkage, starting from establishing the supply chain integration, for example, by establishing also a direct logistic line between Indonesia, especially on our eastern part of Indonesia, that is linking to the Pacific Rim, to the various countries in Latin America. And Panama, for example, is one of the strategic for the sea transportation hub, including countries on the Pacific Rims like Ecuador and also Chile, as the entry point on the sea or also on the air direct line. Another aspect is that how we can also join by establishing the regional hub and spoke integration is also by establishing the technology development, whether it be on the advanced medicine, whether it be on the digital technology, also on the aspect of product development, and also on the various manufacturing. So what I'm proposing here, since the ambassador is here also from Panama, is how can we establish a strategic relationship between Indonesia and the Latin America, Caribbean countries, where we can co-create and we can also co-produce together between these two regions and this various aspect of industry potential that we have between the two regions.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, would you like to comment on that right away?
Well, I completely agree with Reza, because I think that the economies are complementary. And that certainly helps, because I think that we can feed off each other in a very productive way, and it's a win-win situation all around. Energy, tourism, mining are also sectors that are important here in Panama. As you know, we have one of the biggest copper mines here in Central America. And these are sectors that all require training, that all require technology development. So I think that there's many areas in which we can collaborate. You know? And using these new tendencies and using technology, I think we can come closer together. Even if we are apart geographically, I think that there's many things that we can do. And of course, from our side, we would be very interested and willing to speak about how we can make this happen.
Yeah. In terms of policy support, what are your thoughts on that? How do we make this happen? Pak Reza, perhaps? Would you like to
Yes.
touch on that?
Yes, a very good question, Kanya, regarding policy. I just got back actually a week ago from Ecuador as part of our initiative from Indonesia, the Chambers of Commerce Industry, and also the Ministries of Foreign Affairs in terms of how do we strategically build the cooperation with various countries in the Latin America market. And about the policies, for example, this is something that is really grounded. We agree with the Ecuadorian Chambers of Commerce of Industry, for example, where they would like to conduct a best practice of what Indonesia have done in regarding to the institutional reform, regulatory reform, the fiscal reform, including our latest omnibus law on the job creation. And they will be here within for the next 3 months to see how does Indonesia have conduct all this reformation and deregulation or debottlenecking in terms of policy. And with that, the idea is that how can we streamline that policy, including the tariff level between the two countries. So there is a pretty much linkage between Indonesia and Ecuador. And I think this is something that we can do not only with Ecuador, but probably create a regional policy between Latin America, Caribbean, and Indonesia in regarding to the strategic regional hub cooperation.
Okay, so I'd like to go to Pak Rizky to touch a little bit. Pak Rizky, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
I'm not forgetting about you, Pak Rizky. Do you have any comment on this? But you're in the digital space. You're declaring yourself as a super app, the largest in Southeast Asia. What about outside of Southeast Asia? Are you looking to expand as well, Pak Rizky?
Not yet at the moment. We're focusing in Southeast Asia. Indonesia in itself, it's already huge market with a lot of challenges and opportunities. Allow us to actually focus for quite some time in this region first. But definitely we're seeing the development in Latin America. Definitely we keep an eye as well of what's happening in there. But maybe what we can do right now is doing some benchmarking of what's happening in both regions.
Some benchmarkings. Like which particular sectors are you most interested in? Well, you said, the health sectors is something to look out for. Like how is your company going to go forward with that sector?
Of course, technology will be the core focus of our company, and developing technology along with what they use in people's everyday activities in their daily lives. It's the focus that we will be centered on in using the technology. We're focusing in what it's called Grab for Good, which is technology that Grab developed to empower many people, as we probably heard from other panelists as well. Health sector definitely is one of the key things that is developing in the past 1.5 years because of the pandemic. And the development of telemedicine definitely is something that people are looking at. Maybe pre-pandemic, we have launched our telemedicine just a few months before the pandemic. But the adoptions pre-pandemic definitely was not as prevalent as post-pandemic. Right now, people are so much aware that medical services could be done remotely, and it's actually for many of them, not only it's more efficient, but also it's quite safer in certain areas of medical consultations without exposing people for physical exposures, but also enabling remote areas especially in countries like Indonesia, to be able to tap into quality health services. And this is something that we would like to revolutionize. Of course, technology has been the driving force for both Latin America and Indonesia. We heard earlier from Ambassador Vergara that even for the government process in Panama right now is using technology and app. And that's definitely something that we will be seeing more and more in the coming future.
So digital transformation is key, and going forward, it's not, for some companies, looking to transform their operations digitally. What do you think, what would you recommend for these companies to watch out for while doing their transformation digitally?
Good questions, Kania. So based on our experience, developing and attracting investments, especially in technology, involves three elements. The first, what I think is innovations, definitely, it's very, very important. Number two, developing talent is key as well, as we're seeing shortages in talent across the regions for technology sectors. And number three is, I think you mentioned it earlier, collaborations. That is also very, very key. So let me elaborate a little bit further on these three. Yeah. To strengthen Indonesia's tech ecosystem, we have launched innovative features on innovations and initiatives that probably was not in the pictures before. Of course, ride-hailing, we developed it, and then food deliveries, groceries, but we extend into areas where people didn't think of, like micro-insurances. I just mentioned about telemedicine as well, 3PLs, logistics. And those are the innovations that we've developed, but at the same time also attracting investments into the country as well. Number two, on the talent. It's also very, very important. We support the growth of the talent base, and we readying them as well to participate in the digital transformations. I think I mentioned earlier as well, we developed what is called Grab Tech Center. It's tech centers where we gather and we develop our best talents in the country. Right now, the focus is to develop technologies for MSMEs technologies. And over the years, we have also invested in programs such as Grab Ventures Velocity, in which we nurtured the best talents as well, for business incubator programs, of course, targeted as for innovative and impactful businesses. Last but not least, of course, collaborations. We see that collaborations with fellow industry players, but not only fellow industry players, but also with governments, SOEs, as critical. This will allow all of us to combine our strengths. Grab is no strangers in collaborations. We have collaborated with many, many SOEs. We have collaborated with governments. I cited earlier that with Bangga Buatan Indonesia, we supported fully since its inception in January. Most recently, we established strategic partnerships with MTech Group, Indonesian media conglomerate, as well as with Bukalapak, one of the Indonesia prominent e-commerce platforms. With the goal is to accelerate digital transformations and to attract investments as well. Our collaborations with MTech and Bukalapak, again, is focused on MSMEs, but also to the second and third tier cities in Indonesia. We call our program as Kota Masa Depan. Literally, that means City of the Futures, but it's actually an abbreviation, and the abbreviation meaning of the tangible collaborations for the futures. And we tap into cities like Kupang in East Nusa Tenggara, and then Solo, Goa, Malang, Pekanbaru, to basically nurture and accommodate MSMEs in those cities. So I think, to conclude, innovations, talent, collaborations are key, and we've seen that is working for us in Indonesia, and I'm quite sure that will work perfectly well as well for Latin America and the Caribbean.
Very well. We're going to start to take some questions from the participants as well. As mentioned earlier, I'd like to remind again participants who would like to give their questions to the panelists. You can use our chat system to submit your questions, and I will be asking the questions that you will be submitting through our chat system. So we have a couple of questions already coming in, and I'd like to ask this question to Ambassador Vergara from one of our participant. It doesn't mention its name, I'm so sorry, but the question was, one of the point mentioned by Minister Retno during the opening ceremony of INA-LAC is cooperation in creative economy sector. In this connection, I would like to know what is the strategy of Panama to develop its creative industry, and how can we develop this cooperation with Panama or Central America? I'm assuming this participant is from Indonesia. Maybe Ambassador Vergara could also give us some insight regarding the opportunity to have cooperation with SIECA. Ambassador?
Thank you. Well, those are very two interesting questions. And yes, to address the first one, creative industries is a tendency also for the future.
Yeah.
And it has to do with many things. The main thing for the creative industries is that it helps safeguard culture and promote culture in a way that it becomes a business that people can live from, and that makes it that makes all the difference, because you recover people that are not interested today in doing things with culture, because they can't make a living out of it. You now incorporate all those people, and this includes indigenous communities, women, young people who are always looking for a job, that are incorporating into the workplace here in Latin America, especially in Central America, where we have a demographic boom now that started a few years ago, and it will go on for the next 20 years. So we have to have we have to create opportunities for those young people that are coming into the workspace. And creative industries is just so versatile, because it has to do with everything from fashion to video games. I mean, the new technologies for animation and for special effects, which are now all the rage in any production that you see, not only in the traditional films that go to movie theaters, but also in the streaming platforms that have become more popular because of the pandemic, and there seem to be more of them now. They also have to create content, and so these kinds of things are going to be part of the future. And here in Panama, the Ministry of Culture is developing a law to promote the creative industries as a whole, because we have a law that promotes the movie industry as part of the creative industries. But it will become a law, a more comprehensive law, to touch on every area and create opportunities, as I say, for young people and for entrepreneurs. I myself used to run a business incubator, so I am very familiar with the networking capabilities of incubation, and I am a big advocate for it, because I think that companies need that guidance in order to develop and to learn not only best practices, but also lessons learned, which are sometimes more important, because not to make the same mistakes that somebody else already has. And if you could learn from them, you could avoid them and maybe make new mistakes, but not the same as have been done before. And now SIECA is the secretary for the Central American Economic Integration, of which I was Secretary General also. And I think that the links with Central America and Indonesia are very interesting, again, because of the complementary nature of our industrial and services sectors. There is much we can learn from each other, but mainly also because we are interesting markets for our goods and services for our private sector to do business with. So you could look at Central America as, you know, your first foothold into Latin America, and we could do the same with Indonesia for Asia. And because Central America is integrated, and all of these countries are part of an economic system, I think it would be easier, like we did with the European Union, or more recently with Korea, to maybe create a business relationship based on an agreement, whether it is a free trade agreement or a less difficult instrument I think that we can find ways in which we can collaborate and include cooperation in this framework that we can create in order to do more and better business between our regions.
Yes, yes, of course we can. So this is another question following up to that question. Maybe Pak Reza or Pak Rizky can answer this, or Ambassador, if you have any comments on this as well. During pandemic aside, technology, we talked a lot about the technology and digital. What are the new trends in the society that brings huge effect in businesses? Do you think it would be similar in Latin America and Indonesia? I'd like to start with Pak Reza, maybe.
You mean the post-pandemic similarity of the growth in terms of the product and services? Is that what you mean, Kanya?
I think that's what it means. What are the new trends in society, especially, that brings huge impact to the business, I guess, during the pandemic and how going forward, aside from technology?
Yes, yes. Of course, with the pandemic, we see a common situation in terms of how people interact and how also people buy their products. And you can see that in Indonesia, and I also seen that in the Latin American countries, where the digital transformation process is pushed faster by the pandemic situation, that the of goods through e-commerce, it is increasingly seen in Indonesia, but also I see also in the same other region in Latin America country. So that is one aspect in regarding to the similarity of the products.
Yeah. This is a question by the participant, by the way. This was asked by the participant. So Pak Rizky, would you like to add on that? What are the new trends, do you think, that is going to impact businesses going forward besides technology?
Yes, Kania. So number one, I mentioned before, it's about health concerns. So health protocol will be the number one priorities, even though maybe in the lowest concerns areas of populations, that will be still the concerns. And then along with that, then you will see the change in behaviors. Pre-pandemic, people will tend to go from point A to point B in order to fulfill their objectives, to get their objectives. But the change of behavior is happening right now. Instead of going to point A to point B, now what people's change in the behavior is to get their objective in point B, to get delivered in their point A to where actually their whereabouts. And this has changed the way that people do businesses, people do their activities, not only in terms of perhaps business does, but you see in daily activities, for example, of course, how people do groceries, for example. It's no longer people go to the supermarkets, but the supermarkets needs to serve people at their homes or their whereabouts. Even like properties, they need to develop also. People will spend less time to visit the properties, will spend maybe the most efficient times to visit the properties. And then technologies will play part in here. So properties will need to develop as well to be able to give the best experience for people to be able to see the properties from remotely. The office activities as well. City centers used to be the what it's called, city centers, literally, right? But I think it will also change. The role of suburbs will play more important parts in the futures. People will create mini city centers, and we will see more and more development of suburbs in the coming years, I think. So I think, please, let's watch out what's coming in the next few years. But I think the change of behaviors will change a lot of business activities.
Okay. Yes? Go ahead.
Can I add a couple of things to that part? And I think that also food developing is going to change. We are moving here to smart agriculture, for instance. The new tendency of superfoods, because is something that we have learned from the pandemic, is how ill-prepared we were for something like this as a collective, each country separately, but also as a world. And I think that it's become more evident that we don't produce enough to feed ourselves. And this is something that is going to be a tendency in the future. Then in the hospitality sector, many things are going to change. I mean, tourists are not going to be the same as they were before, because
Yes.
now it's going to be harder to travel and more costly to travel. And so one of the tendencies that we looked at is the fact that the travel that you do for work to attend meetings is going to be cut by at least 50%, because you don't need to do that anymore. I mean, we can meet in platforms such as these, where everyone is at home or in their office, and then after the meeting is over, you just continue to do your activity, and you don't have to incur in any expense in order to travel for a 2-hour meeting anymore. So those are some tendencies that are going to affect different things in the way we live, in the way we do business, in the way we enjoy ourselves or leisure time. And we have to take all of those into consideration. But for me, I think that the main one would be the way that we look at the environment.
Right.
The way that we recover is now we could go back to doing the same thing that hasn't worked for many decades, or we can heed what the experts are saying and try to recover better, incorporating sustainability into the recovery process. And that has to do also with public policy from the different countries in terms of what they're willing to do to make the world a more sustainable place. And Panama has the distinction of being one of the 3 countries in the world today that is carbon zero, and one of the 2 countries in the world that has already complied with the 30 by 30 strategy from the UN, protecting 30% of our land and 30% of our oceans. So we take this recovering in a sustainable way very, very seriously. And I think that's another tendency that we are going to see more of, because you see over 47% of consumers worldwide are now more worried about the products that they get, and the fact that these products and the companies they get them from are sustainable. So this is why I think that this tendency is going to be a big one in the future. We'll see what happens at COP26, but I imagine countries are going to come up with new and important ways in which achieving these goals. You see, the European Union has a green strategy for the recovery process, and they want to be carbon zero by 2050. So that tells you right there what kind of companies they are going to promote, what kind of products they're going to promote during the next years, so that they can achieve these goals.
Okay. Pak Reza, would you like to touch on that as well? Sustainable development in Indonesia. Are companies in Indonesia growing more conscious? I guess that's the question. Pak Reza?
Yes, I think Pak Rizky mentioned about the change of behavior, not only from the communities or the consumer, but also automatically it impacts the private sectors or the industry, including also the government. And because of that, it requires us also to define the way how we should produce the different kind of technology and also the energy that we will be using, and it's going to be going the direction like the ambassador was mentioning about the renewable energy. And this initiative we also seen is happening in Indonesia in regarding how the renewable energy projects in different kind of our islands, province, including on the village level, and of how renewable energy projects is being conducted on the village level to create that sustainability within the village. Just to add something also on the previous question and relating also to the sustainable development, also digital technology. Another aspect of the commonality between Indonesia and also Latin America, especially during the pandemic and also the post-pandemic, Kanya, that I also see is the use of digital technology and managing the supply chain. Mean products that's being produced by manufacturer, by principals, like the Unilever, the P&G, and how do they distribute their products to the distributor, to the retailers, and then at the end to the consumer. This process is also now we've seen companies are now also moving toward the development of digital technology and managing that business process, that supply process, including to the last mile support of delivering those products by using, for example, like Grab, for example.
Yeah.
So, and then later we will see also this integration relating to the sea and the air transportation, including the national single window in terms of how custom is being processed, things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Pak Rizky, would you like to add on that? I'd like to ask this question to you as well, Pak Rizky, to answer. This is from one of the participants. I mean, when we talk about bonus demography, Panama, Ambassador Vergara mentioned that the country is also experiencing bonus demography, and also Indonesia as well. So this is a question from a young business owners who's here as one of the participants joining us in this session as well. And this young business owners is asking how to find new strategies to deal with the pandemic, because they are less advantaged than those who are considered pioneers. And what ways can these young business owners develop in developing countries, especially, embrace to survive and grow? Do you have any advice on this, Pak Rizky?
Yes, Kanya. Interesting. We also hope there's a bonus democracy. Sorry, joking aside. Yes, so bonus demography is I think it's a strength, and you see that. The digital transformations that's happening across the regions, including in Latin America, Caribbean, and of course in Indonesia, is being it's actually energized by the young sectors. It's actually very important for the regions to have young talents. To be able to revolutionize what is actually the business practice. So what we'll see here is that the young segments will have to boost the transformations in digital sectors. Many startups, as you can see right now, is stepping into new areas of industries, new areas of what could be improved, new areas of productivities through the deployment of technology. And I think this is an opportunity on its own. One of the challenges, as I mentioned before, is actually the talent gaps that we're seeing in the regions. So we would see, we hope with the government's policies and reforms in education systems, a strong linkage between educational systems and industries will help to bolster and to develop the development of young talents toward technologies, in which will be beneficial for countries to strengthen their economic development. I think this will be key, and this is an opportunity on its own. The young people will need to tap into this opportunity, because there's no better windows of opportunity, the way that I see it, beyond this decade. This is actually a very defining decade for most of the regions, whether certain countries or regions could leave the technologies, because many of the technologies that we have assumed before may not be relevant. So this will be, again, the defining decade. What kind of technology will be important for actually the next decade for the countries and for the region? So I think as much as it's a challenge, it's also an opportunity for many regions to take a leap on. And please pay attention to this. And then I think, again, once again, the demographic bonus will be a strong advantage to that.
It's a strong advantage to that. Very well. So I'd like to take another question from participant. This is from Coca-Cola Biscuit Company. I think it's a company based in Indonesia. Two questions. One question to Pak Reza and one question to Ambassador Vergara. Pak Reza, the question is, as you said, due to the pandemic, there is a regional movement, regional approach, especially to overcome the high cost of ocean freight. This is a very technical question. I hope you're ready for this. The problem we found in the ground, especially when negotiating with prospective buyers from Latin America, was the freight ocean. Price and quality of the product have been agreed, but when the importer sees the freight ocean, I would like to hear your advice to deal with this situation, high cost of freight ocean. Thank you, Pak. That's the question.
Yes,
Titik tadi.
Thank you very much, Kanya. This is a very good practical question, and this is the challenge that we're facing our world today during this pandemic situation. And this is exactly what I mean by having the strategic hub and spoke and regional collaboration. And again, as I mentioned to you, I just recently got back about a week ago from Ecuador as part of the Indonesia initiative in building the partnership with different kind of countries. And what we can do actually, and this is under discussion, is under preparation also, and I think we can do this also with Panama because of the strategic location of Panama in the Central America region. What we are now doing as we speak, we are at the moment calculating the number of freight of trade from Indonesia going into, for example, Ecuador, vice versa, Ecuador to Indonesia, in terms of volume, types, and also the frequency of freight. So the idea to support the efficiency of cost of freight and also the time of the traveling of the products between the two regions, we are planning to create a direct ocean shipment from Indonesia, for example, to the Latin American country, in this case, for example, Ecuador. And this will be a good example also with Panama, actually, with the strategic location of Panama, to design this ocean ship going from the two regions. By doing this, we can then reduce the cost much more effectively and also prepare the scheduling between the two locations. So this is actually something that is in the making. We are in the process of doing this, and I think if this example is working, we would like to bring this on a more scalable level with other partners in Latin America, like Panama.
Okay, so we hope it works, yeah, Pak Reza. The second question is to Ambassador Vergara. This is a question from Coca-Cola, a biscuit company based in Indonesia. And the question is, in Latin America, you have Mercado Libre, the biggest e-commerce in your area. Can you explain to us how big is the potential of Mercado Libre?
Well, yeah, we do have Mercado Libre, and I'm very proud of it also. And I think that the potential, as I think Reza mentioned before about e-commerce, it's huge because, well, we can get everything with a click in our computer and delivered to us from anywhere in the world. So more and more companies here, especially SMEs, which was not the case before the pandemic, because here in our country, people like to actually go to the mall and look at the things that they're going to buy. Yeah. They like to go out to restaurants, and they like to go out to the movies. So during the pandemic and the quarantine time, we had to adjust all of these things, and companies had to adjust also their business models. So the National Authority for Small and Medium Enterprises here in Panama has developed several programs to help companies integrate technology into the way that they do business, so that they can actually use these platforms and others that are out there. Because if you want to do this with the same business model that you had before the pandemic, that didn't integrate technology, is going to be impossible. Yeah. This requires, in order to be used, it requires a new way of thinking, and it requires people that can actually manage the kind of business that is going to come from the digital world, whether it is Mercado Libre or any other platform. Yeah. And Mercado Libre, we have seen how much it has grown during the pandemic, but also we've seen other platforms like Mercado Libre coming on, not only in Latin America, but in many countries, because people are seeing this as a new way to do business, and everybody wants to get in on it.
Yeah. And I think the question was, can Indonesian product be sold and can join Mercado Libre, perhaps?
Well, I don't know, actually, but I will find out for you. I would guess, being an internet company, anybody from anywhere can use the platform. I don't see that there would be any restrictions. The thing would be, how would you make that happen? I think that you would have to have, I don't know, a warehouse probably in a country in Latin America. Panama has the Colón Free Zone. It's the second largest free zone in the world after Hong Kong. So you have the availability of showrooms and warehouses there. And perhaps because this is also something that has been done by other countries, if your company doesn't have the capability of having its own warehouse and its own showroom, you can have a country warehouse and showroom at the Colón Free Zone. And companies, SMEs from Indonesia can share in the cost, and then they can have products already here that you will bring in bulk and then disperse when you get an order from here, which would be cheaper and faster than having to bring each product one by one to the end consumer. So this is also a strategy that we are doing at ProPanama. And I give you an example. We're participating now in Expo Dubai, in Expo 2020 in Dubai, with Indonesia and another 192 countries participating. And in order to get into that market, we are making available a warehouse and a showroom, a country warehouse and showroom for our SMEs. So if they want to sell in that market or use Dubai as a platform to sell to the GCC or other countries in Africa or India, they can share this country showroom and warehouse that we are going to set for them, so that they can have their product closer to the end consumer.
Very well, thank you. Thank you for that, Ambassador Vergara. I think that's all the time that we have right now. Maybe we have time for some closing remarks, just a very short one. Let's start with Pak Rizky.
Thank you, Kania. So again, health is the prerequisite right now, and then I think all of us knows that how important digital transformations will be, and we see that technology has developed in both of the regions, Latin American, Caribbean, as well as Indonesia. And in Indonesia, in particular, we see our focus is to develop technologies to help MSMEs, and let's recover from this pandemic and in a better state.
Very well, thank you. Pak Reza?
Yes, probably because I'm from the private sectors, and usually I would like to, what are the low-hanging fruit that we can start tomorrow, for example, on this collaboration between, for example, Panama, Indonesia, and also the bigger part, the Latin America, Caribbean. And I think following to what the ambassador just mentioned, because of the Panama strategic location and also the facility that's available on the special economic zone, Ambassador, if I may propose, is that we can create that hub between Indonesia and Panama to the Central America, for example, for the micro, small, medium enterprises from Indonesia, but also in Indonesia from Panama, supported by the e-commerce platform, where basically we have here also various e-commerce platform that we can integrate between platform to platform with the support of the, for example, bonded logistics center in the economic zone, to create the free flow of products between our two countries. And then from there, probably the support of the, the freight, a direct freight between Panama and Indonesia to support an efficiency of costs and to support the first line of infrastructure of hub and spoke between our two nations. Hopefully that can be something that we can continue after this event.
Very well, thank you. Thank you for that, Pak Reza. Ambassador, any last thoughts?
Well, I just want to say, Reza, that you have our complete support in that proposal that you just made, and we would like to probably suggest a work meeting in order to make that happen. And I just want to say thank you so much for including ProPanama in this important meeting, and I hope that everyone listening and watching this program will see Panama as an alternative for their businesses in Latin America. And if you need any more information from us, just go to our social media or webpage, which is propanama.gov.pa, and or to our embassy in Indonesia, and they will have all of that information ready and able for you. And I think that there's so many things that are complementary that I think that we should work together in order to recover better, faster. So thank you very much.
Thank you again for that, Ambassador Vergara. That wraps up our discussion for today. Thank you to our distinguished panelists, Mr. Rizky Kramadibrata, President of Grab Indonesia, Mr. Reza Faldo Mas Paitela of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kadin, as well as founder and President Director of Faldo Investama, and also Ambassador Carmen Gisela Vergara, who is the Executive Director of Pro Panama. Thank you again for joining us. And also thank you to our audience for participating as well, submitting your questions. We're very sorry we don't have enough time to answer all of your questions. But I think in conclusion, we need to work hand in hand. Government, enterprises as well need to work hand in hand to reach the full potential of a sustainable and digital economy recovery post-COVID-19. So at this point, I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight the use of INA-Access. We are talking about digital economy, and INA-Access is a digital platform that we are using right now. Is a platform that will serve to promote and also connect Indonesia's trade, investment, and tourism sectors to the world, including an avenue for Indonesia and Latin America and Caribbean countries as well to showcase their businesses and also provide on-site business matching opportunities. This digital platform was recently launched by Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia just yesterday, the 14th of October 2021 this year, as one of the deliverables of the Indonesia, Latin America and Caribbean Business Forum 2021, which is great. So now let's take a look at a video of INA-Access and its testimony.
Indonesia has been entering the new era of Industry 4.0, and going digital is the only way to keep up with the rapid pace of the modern business environment. Therefore, I appreciate the development of an integrated digital platform INA-Access as an innovative measure toward inclusive trade, tourism, and investment for Latin America and the Caribbean and beyond. It plays a role as an innovative approach to facilitate business interaction swiftly and effectively. I would like to invite all Indonesian business people to utilize the INA-Access digital platform and grab the potential to seize the opportunity of the digital transformation on doing business. So let's utilize INA-Access.com.
So we have reached the end of our session. Thank you again for joining us in the Indonesian, Latin America, and the Caribbean Business Forum 2021 panel discussion forum entitled Business and Investment Post-COVID-19 Pandemic. Thank you again for joining us in this session. I'm Kanya Sutisnawinata. Have a good day.